Language Notes, Topic 5, Meals and Mealtimes, Part 1.
There are many words in English that have a direct translation in other languages. Breakfast is one example. You know this word. Breakfast is the first meal of the day. You also understand the meanings of lunch and dinner. Although we all understand breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we experience these events, these meals, in different ways. You know there are variations from family to family and, of course, from culture to culture, particularly in terms of when exactly these meals are eaten, what foods are eaten, and how they're eaten. In this lesson, I'd like to talk about meals and meal times in the U.S. Let's talk about the first meal of the day, breakfast. Breakfast can be eaten anywhere from about 6 a.m. to 9 or even 10 a.m. It all depends on the lifestyle of the person or the family. Who goes to work outside the home? Who goes to school? On a school day or a work day, breakfast is eaten early. When it's the weekend, breakfast can be eaten later in the morning. Breakfast is not always a sit-down meal. For busy, active Americans, breakfast is eaten on the go. So we have things called breakfast drinks and breakfast bars. Some Americans then open the drink, open the bar, and take breakfast with them as they walk to school or go to the bus stop. Some have a car and they eat breakfast in the car. They use a drive-through. Some restaurants and some cafes or coffee shops have drive-throughs. People go in their car, they order a cup of coffee, maybe a pastry, they receive their food, and they continue on in their car eating their breakfast. Some school cafeterias serve breakfast. In fact, many do. So a good number of school children eat breakfast at school before classes begin.
Americans have hot and cold foods for breakfast. Here are some common choices: a bagel with cream cheese, donuts, coffee and a muffin, waffles, cold cereal, meaning cereal with cold milk, pancakes with syrup, and orange juice is a favorite.
Breakfast foods are loved by many. In fact, we have some restaurants, family restaurants usually, that serve breakfast all day long. So you can go at 10 o'clock at night and order eggs and toast and a cup of orange juice. After breakfast comes lunch. Lunch is usually eaten around 12 o'clock noon. Most restaurants begin serving lunch at 11 a.m. When a person eats lunch depends on their school schedule, their work schedule, or maybe their personal preference. School cafeterias serve a hot lunch, but for many, lunch can be a cold meal. Sandwiches are a popular choice for lunch. If a person is at work, the typical lunch break is 1 hour. Many choose not to buy their lunch. They choose to pack a lunch. And when you pack a lunch, you have a lunch bag. There are two kinds of lunch bags. The first is a reusable lunch bag. Many school children, most school children in fact, are encouraged to use a reusable lunch bag. Okay, so this is a typical lunch bag. There's also a brown paper bag. In fact, we have the saying, brown bag. I'm brown bagging it. If you're brown bagging it, it means you're bringing your lunch from home, usually in this kind of paper bag.
I've already mentioned sandwiches as a common lunch food. A very common combination or combo is soup and sandwich or soup and salad. You'll find these combos on many lunch menus at U.S. restaurants.
The third meal of the day is dinner. In the U.S., you might also hear the word supper. There are some families in which the word dinner refers to the midday meal and supper refers to the evening meal. However, for the majority of Americans, the words dinner and supper are synonymous. They have the same meaning. I think dinner is the more common word. Dinner can be eaten anywhere from about 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. However, dinner at 8 o'clock or later is considered very late in the U.S. Most restaurants begin serving dinner at around 5. The average time for dinner is probably 6 o'clock p.m. Dinner in the U.S. is a sit-down meal. It's a hot meal, and it's a family meal. There are different kinds of dinner events. Sometimes you'll get invited to dinner, and you should ask, to be polite, what can I bring? The people inviting you to dinner are called the host and hostess. This is the man, this is the woman. The host or hostess might tell you, oh, don't bring anything, just bring yourself. It's still polite to bring something like a bouquet of flowers. Invited guests, if they're allowed to bring something or asked to bring something, choose a wine or perhaps a dessert to share. At a potluck dinner, each guest is expected to bring a dish to share with the whole party. If it's a large party, there might be a buffet or buffet style, meaning all the dishes are placed on one long table. The guests come up, they serve themselves, and then go back to smaller tables and sit down and eat.
While a buffet might have many different dishes, a typical American dinner might look something like this, with meat, vegetables, and a side dish of perhaps potatoes or rice. Dessert quite often follows dinner. Sometimes dessert is fresh fruit, but in terms of sweets, some common choices are cookies, cake, and ice cream. These sweet foods might be eaten with a cup of coffee or cup of tea. This is the end of Part 1. Please go on to Part 2. Please visit my website today at www.englishwithjennifer.com. You'll find study tips, interactive exercises, vocabulary videos, and more.